The smoke from the backyard grill stung my eyes that afternoon in Orlando. The kind of heat that makes the air shimmer and the sky look like it's melting. Dad raised his beer, his voice booming across the lawn. $100,000 for Chase to study luxury management in Monaco. Everyone cheered. Mom clinked her glass. My brother grinned like a movie star in training. I just stood there, sweat and silence dripping down my neck. "What about my editing course?" I asked quietly. Mom didn't even look up from her drink. "Sierra, you're not worth a dime." That was the moment everything inside me stopped pretending. I tossed my napkin on the table, grabbed my phone, and booked an Uber to Miami International. No goodbyes, no tears. Just the door slamming behind me, cutting off 5 years of being invisible. Quick reminder, most of you aren't subscribed. If you enjoy this, hit subscribe and like now, then let's get back to the story. My name's Sierra Donovan, 23 now. But back then I was 18, fresh out of high school, stuck in the shadow of my golden boy brother, Chase. Our house was a trophy case for his victories and a storage unit for my dreams. Dad ran a small construction firm that he bragged about like it was Fortune 500, and Mom treated our lives like a PR campaign, complete with hashtags and holiday decor themes. Me? I was the background noise between their bragging rights, but it hadn't always been this way. I can still see that Christmas when the differences became impossible to ignore. Chase had his big moment first, Dad dragging in a 12-foot artificial tree that blinked in rhythm with Christmas carols. Guests filled the house with laughter and the smell of cinnamon candles. When Chase ripped open his gift, a top-of-the-line drone with a 4K camera, Dad ruffled his hair. "This'll teach you to aim high in business, kid." Everyone clapped. "Phones out. Dartbirder next entrepreneur." The following year, when it was my turn, the tree looked the same, but the energy had shifted. Dad handed me a plain envelope. "Something useful this time, Sierra." Inside was a Miami Metro card loaded with bus rides. "Time to handle the city solo. Toughens you up, no drone, no applause. Just a lecture about real-world grit." That card turned out to be my lifeline. It took me across the city to the downtown library, where I'd lose myself in the hum of computers and the cool of the air conditioning. That's where I found editing, cutting clips, layering sound, piecing stories together from scraps. I'd borrow phones from classmates to shoot little documentaries, polishing them between homework shifts and bus rides home. One short film, Miami Street Life, ended up winning the district's media fair. When I ran home to show Dad, he looked up from washing his car. "Solid effort," he said, wiping his hands. "But does it pay?" Mom called it cute. She never watched it. Chase was busy rehearsing for Model UN, and the whole house revolved around him again. I kept working in silence. Every project went into a folder, every win uncelebrated. That Metro card wore out long before my patience did, but I reloaded it with babysitting money. It was the only gift that had ever actually gotten me somewhere. Years blurred into repetition, Chase soaring, me staying quiet. The house was full of his new tablets and event badges, while my drives filled with edits no one saw. Every Christmas, the same show, Dad's booming voice, Mom's champagne smile, Chase's spotlight. I became good at fading out, until that barbecue. The Uber pulled away from the driveway, the sound of laughter fading behind me, replaced by the thrum of the highway. For the first time, the road ahead wasn't planned by anyone but me. When the plane touched down in Miami, I stepped into a different kind of heat, the kind that doesn't burn. It awakens. The terminal buzzed with languages I didn't understand and energy I'd never felt. I had one suitcase, a few $100s, and zero backup plan. Then I saw her. Aunt Evelyn stood at the arrivals gate holding a handmade sign. "Welcome home, Sierra." She wrapped me in a hug that smelled like sunscreen and fresh laundry. "You made the bravest choice, kiddo," she whispered. Her condo overlooked South Beach, vibrant, cluttered, alive. She gave me the spare bedroom, a key on a seashell chain, and a promise. "This is your safe harbor now." That night, we sat on the balcony watching the sky turn orange and pink over the waves. I told her everything, the party, the words, the silence. She didn't interrupt once. They undervalued you for too long, she said softly. But here? You'll learn what you're really worth. The next morning smelled like strong Cuban coffee and salt air. Over breakfast tacos, she said something I'll never forget. Pain fuels the best stories. Channel it into something they can't ignore. I didn't know it yet, but those words would become my entire life philosophy. Weeks passed. I hunted for jobs, slept on her couch, and learned how to stretch $10 into 3 meals. I filmed on my cracked phone, edited with free apps, and served mojitos at an Ocean Drive cafe to keep the lights on. It was grueling. Sunburns, blisters, customers snapping their fingers. But every night, I'd stay up editing under the fairy lights in Evelyn's living room. Then one night, a tiny video I made, locals dancing salsa on the sand, went viral. 2 million views. Thousands of comments. This girl's edits are fire. I screamed so loud the neighbors complained. Aunt Evelyn just laughed, raising her empanada like a toast. Told you, kid. Authenticity sells. And right there, with my heart pounding and my phone buzzing nonstop, I realized something I'd never felt before. For the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone's permission to shine. The ocean outside Aunt Evelyn's condo hummed like background music to my new life. The waves sinking with every click of my laptop. It still felt unreal. Millions of strangers had watched my video, shared it, commented like they knew me. I'd gone from an invisible girl behind a camera to someone whose edits had a heartbeat. I was 20 now, living off cafe tips and freelance scraps. But for the first time, every dollar I earned carried my name. Evelyn said success was just another form of storytelling, one frame at a time. She wasn't wrong. I kept creating. Filming street artists, skateboarders, neon reflections in puddles after the rain, I learned to chase light, to time sound to emotion. My videos got sharper, bolder, more confident. I wasn't chasing views anymore. I was chasing impact. Still, when the notifications hit 2 million again, then 4, I realized this was bigger than a lucky post. That's when she messaged me, Arya, a marketing agency owner from Atlanta. Her DM read, "Your cuts are fire. Want to run socials for our clients?" Remote to start. I laughed, half convinced it was spam. But Evelyn checked her out. Legit. Agency, clients, a real business. I took the call on Evelyn's balcony, hair in a messy bun, salt air whipping through. Arya had sharp eyes and quicker words. "You've got instinct, Sierra," she said. "That can't be taught. Let's build something." 2 weeks later, I packed a suitcase and took a one-way flight to Atlanta. My first real move as an adult. The loft I rented in Midtown had exposed brick walls, cracked windows, and charm in the kind of way that made you believe dreams could grow there. I set up a makeshift workstation, a thrifted desk, a secondhand ring light, and my aging laptop that overheated every 2 hours. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. My first project was for a small beauty brand. Revamp their online presence. I storyboarded every detail, color-graded the tones to match their lip gloss line, added sound cues that made the transition sing. The day it launched, engagement tripled. Arya called me that night, laughing into the phone. "You just made us look like geniuses." More clients followed. Tech companies, fashion startups, local artists. My handle Sierra Edit Pro became a small brand. I built a website, a logo, started packaging my skills like products, template packs, tutorials, behind-the-scenes edits. I wasn't just editing anymore. I was creating a universe. By the end of my first year with Arya, I'd made 6 figures. 6. The same number Dad once said I'd never touch without a real degree. I upgraded my gear, a custom-built desktop, dual monitors, a chair that didn't squeak. I even hired a virtual assistant to manage the flood of emails that began each morning with, "Hey, we saw your reel." Evelyn called me every Sunday, her voice full of warmth. "From couch to CEO," she teased once. I told her I wasn't a CEO, just a freelancer with lucky timing. But deep down, I felt something shifting. Arya made me creative director after I pitched a subscription model for content packs. It went live with a waiting list and blew past projections. We crossed 7 figures in revenue one quiet Tuesday afternoon. I celebrated alone in my kitchen, barefoot, eating cold pizza. Then came the message that would change everything. A writer from Forbes reached out. "We're compiling our 300 under 30 list. We'd love to feature Sierra Edit Pro. I froze, the cursor blinking on the email like it was daring me to believe it. When the article dropped, my inbox exploded. Clients, investors, podcast invites, endorsement offers. I was officially one of the youngest self-made creatives in digital media. It didn't feel real, but that's when the past came knocking. My phone buzzed one morning while I was reviewing a campaign reel. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, then curiosity won. "Hey," a voice said. It's Chase." I hadn't heard that voice in 5 years. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it. "You're on Forbes, Sierra." Dad saw it. "Mom's losing it. They want to talk to you." My throat went dry. "About what?" "About everything. The company's in trouble. Dad thought maybe you could—" I hung up before he finished. Then came the texts. From Dad, "Construction's slowing, need advice." From Mom, "We're so proud of you. Maybe you could help fund Chase's wedding. You'd be the perfect maid of honor." The nerve. After everything, they still saw me as a resource, not a daughter. I crumpled Mom's letter when it arrived. A thick envelope listing wedding expenses like a business invoice. The irony wasn't lost on me. That night, I called Evelyn, my voice shaking. "They only reached out because of the money." "Of course they did," she said gently. "But remember, you taught them what your silence means." I wanted to believe her, but guilt crept in anyway. That old childlike ache that still wanted to be chosen. Days passed in a blur of messages I didn't answer. I blocked numbers, muted emails, ignored voicemails that sounded like rehearsed apologies. I told myself I didn't owe them anything, but I still felt like I'd swallowed glass. One evening, Evelyn flew up to Atlanta. We sat on my balcony, city lights flickering around us. "Boundaries aren't walls, Sierra," she said, sipping tea. "They're doors you control." I nodded, staring at the skyline. "Then I'm locking mine." But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Because when you build something out of pain, the past doesn't just disappear. It waits for an opening. And mine was about to find one. Success has a strange sound. It's not applause or celebration. It's quiet. It hums through the air when your phone lights up with payments cleared, campaigns launched, ideas turned into something people can't stop talking about. But in that silence, you start hearing echoes from the past you thought you'd buried. When Forbes published my feature, the world finally saw me. But so did they. Mom, Dad, Chase. Their messages turned desperate. Dad sent spreadsheets labeled Loan Proposal, Donovan Construction. Mom followed with another letter, long, flowery, guilt-laced. Family helps family. Your brother's wedding could be unforgettable with your contribution. She even itemized the venue cost, down to the floral arch. I deleted it. Then came the calls. Chase again. His voice cracked between pride and entitlement. "You can't just ignore us, Sierra. You're loaded now. What's the big deal?" The big deal was that they'd only ever called when they needed something. Never when I did. Evelyn stayed steady through it all. "You don't owe anyone who treated your worth like an inconvenience," she reminded me. Still, I booked a session with Dr. Ford, a therapist Arya recommended. "They don't want reconciliation," she said during our first call. "They want access." That sentence cut deep, but it was true. So I drafted one final message. No money, no visits, no contact. Respect this boundary or legal action follows. Then I hit send all. For weeks, silence held, the kind that felt earned. I focused on work, scaling my company, mentoring young editors, giving talks about authenticity and ownership. But peace doesn't last forever. One morning, an invitation landed in my inbox. Forbes 30 Under 30 Gala, Austin, Texas. The email shimmered like a full-circle moment. I thought about declining, until Evelyn called. "You should go," she said. "Not for them, for the girl who took that bus with nothing but a Metro card." So I went. Austin glowed that night, neon arches pulsing with music, cameras flashing along a red carpet that felt more surreal than celebratory. I wore a midnight blue gown, sleek and simple. Nothing borrowed, nothing fake. Inside, the air buzzed with ambition. Tech moguls, influencers, investors. Evelyn sat quietly in the back, proud and grounded as ever. I was making small talk with a venture capitalist when I saw them. Mom, Dad, Chase. They stood by the bar like ghosts out of time. Mom's pearl earrings catching the light, Dad scanning the room, Chase scrolling nervously. When they spotted me, they waved. And before I could move, Mom was already gripping my wrist. "Perfect timing," she said, smiling too wide. "Chase's wedding planner quoted 50 grand for the reception. You could easily—" "And my firm's struggling," Dad interrupted, his voice low but urgent. "You've got connections. Maybe—" Chase couldn't even look at me. "Just help us out, sis. Please." Across the room, Evelyn met my eyes. One small nod. Steady, sure. I pulled my wrist free. "Enjoy the evening," I said softly. "But don't mistake proximity for permission." Before they could reply, the host called my name. Philanthropy Spotlight, Sierra Donovan. The lights dimmed. A single beam followed me up the stage. My palms didn't shake. My voice didn't falter. "Tonight," I began, "I'm pledging $100,000, not to those who doubted me, but to the dreamers who were told they weren't worth a dime." Gasps, applause, cameras flashing like fireworks. The projector behind me displayed the details. Scholarships for young editors from underfunded schools. The audience rose to their feet. I scanned the crowd and found them. Mom's glass froze halfway to her lips. Dad stared at the floor, jaw clenched. Chase. Chase was crying. I walked off stage into Evelyn's waiting arms. "Bold and beautiful," she whispered. Reporters crowded around, microphones flashing, questions flying. "Is your donation inspired by your past?" I smiled. "It's inspired by what comes next." Later, near the dessert station, they tried again. Mom's tone cracked this time. "That donation could have been our lifeline." "Family loyalty," Dad muttered. "Guess money changed you." "No," I said. "It revealed you." Security stepped in when voices rose. I didn't look back. That night, from my hotel balcony, Austin's skyline shimmered beneath the fireworks. My phone buzzed. A message from Evelyn. "You gave to those who need it most. That's the only legacy that matters." I smiled through tears. She was right. Months passed, then a year. I settled back into Miami, my penthouse overlooking the same ocean that had once promised reinvention. My company grew, my scholarship fund expanded, and the quiet I lived in now was finally peace, not loneliness. Then one morning, a finance alert popped up. Donovan Construction, bankruptcy filed. Their empire had collapsed under debt and poor decisions. Equipment repossessed. Offices vacated. Chase's hotel chain had downsized. He'd lost his position. Mom picked up retail shifts. Dad stopped answering reporters. I read it once, then closed the app. Not with satisfaction, just understanding. Some lessons cost what they're worth. Every Tuesday, Evelyn called like clockwork. We talked about the weather, her pottery class, my mentorships. Never about them. She visited often now. We'd have brunches on my rooftop, sunlight glinting off the waves. Once, she sliced fruit quietly and said, "Consequences catch up, Sierra, but peace is earned." I looked out at the horizon, wind brushing my hair, and thought of that Metro card. the one that started it all. I still kept it, tucked inside a leather wallet on my desk, not as a reminder of where I came from, but proof that leaving was the first investment I ever made in myself. That night, I whispered to the empty room, "They lost me." I lost nothing, because in the end, sometimes the most radical form of love is walking away and never looking back.